horsepower. The aerodynamics are really what's working more on these cars than the horsepower is.
Looking back at Scott Pruitt as he tries to do everything he can to get up into the front and into this fight.
You can see how wide the grooves are. You know, they don't, everybody was talking about when they first got here that the new track, new pavement rather on it, it was going to be a one-groove track. Well, already you can see, we've seen 3 grooves wide already with almost 25 cars doing it. You can see Scott right now, he's all over the place.
Pruitt working on the Gallus driver, Adrian Fernandez.
Just put yourself for a second in Pruitt's place. The tension, I mean, things seem to be happening in slow motion. Remember, they're going 230 miles an hour. Anything that goes wrong at this speed could be catastrophic.
We'll ride with Scott Pruitt. He is 10th. He makes the move on Adrian Fernandez.
Now what happens there is Adrian was running low thinking that he was going to block Scott. This racetrack, because of the grooves being so wide. There's
Jacques Villeneuve comes off and into the pits.
That's unscheduled, Paul.
Oh, absolutely. 22 laps into the book. This could mean trouble for the points leader.
And he's going too slow. He's got some sort of a problem. He's going way too slow coming in.
Green team is right there, and the IndyCar officials are saying, hold it, we've seen something here.
That's the crew guys saying they found some sort of a problem right there with his hand in the air.
Something in the right rear. Suspension, we're talking to Renard. A wheel bearing, what could this possibly be? But before you answer that, whatever it is, it may speak once again to the toughness of Michigan.
Well, it's definitely in the right rear. Everybody's seeing something right in the right rear. I can see smoke coming back there a little bit too, Paul. So he's probably got a bearing in the upright that's gone.
That would be only his second breakdown in the last 9 races.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, we're showing you the rear hub that they're going to pull out and put on the right side of the car, Paul. So definitely this is going to be a long stop for your point leader.
Now there's the upright right there. That's what Jack's referring to as the hub. Now most likely the part that's gone bad is the bearings inside to keep the whole thing together.
And Jack Arute, any idea, Jack, on the hub, what might be the problem? Wheel bearing, a connection, what is it?
Well, right now, Paul, they're really not going to discern what the problem is. It's easier just to change it and get him back out there.
The reason, of course, they'll put this work in is this race is notorious as being one where people break down. You could spend 10, 15 laps in the pits right now and still finish in the first 5 at the end of this day.
Another thing you have to worry about, Sam and Paul and Jack, is when they put those things back on, they don't get aligned as good as they were when he started the race.
All right, Michael Andretti, who is 3rd, but he's dropped way back. Listen to that engine. What is that?
A little bit of back off. He backed off just for a minute there, or he could have popped a gear shifter. Remember, they told you they have 2 gears that they race with. One of them to get rolling with that they'll use certainly after the restart, and the other one is what they call the cruise gear, like the overdrive in a car.
Well, I buy the gear change, Bobby, because I don't think he'd have backed off at that point on the track.
Yeah, but look at this. Michael comes off the corner low. That's Paul Tracy closing in on him. And Michael, for the most part, just lets Tracy cruise on past. Are we going to see Michael Andretti in the pits shortly? He's staying out right now.
Here comes Ribeiro. There, he's shooting right by him. No effort.
Oh, whatever it is a problem now. No question about it. Look at the difference in his fastest lap at 224 and his last lap at 208.
Yeah, he'll be in pretty quick. He's got a bad problem. He could even have a broken header on it, too.
This team has complained about these new Ford engines, and it looks like one may be letting him down now.
What about Michael, Gary Gerald?
On the radio, he's telling the crew, Paul, that it's something to do with the engine. He says it's very much like what happened at Cleveland. Remember, in the last 12, 13 laps at Cleveland, they traced that after the event to an ignition problem. Michael thinks it's the same. They're waving him into position as he's on pit road.
So on lap 28, Michael Andretti brings an ailing engine into the pits. The team, most notably in the person of Paul Tracy, has been concerned about their Ford engines thus far. And this may be further evidence of that concern. He shut her down. The cowling comes off. It's going to be a long stop for Michael. Parker Johnstone is still the leader, followed by Teo Fabi. And with Michaels turning the pits, Paul Tracy picks up third, followed by Ribeiro, and then Jimmy Vasser in fifth. This is our best fight on the track, as Ribeiro is trying to close Paul Tracy.
And Ribeiro so far has been the fastest moving of the guys in the middle part of the pack. Look at him suck up behind Paul Tracy right there.
But he obviously doesn't have the handling. As soon as he gets to turn, he backs off a little bit. Handling, you got to remember, this track is almost all turns. Handling is very important. Of course, horsepower is. But horsepower only does you good if you have the handling to go along with it.
We'll keep watching as Ribeiro moves to the inside of Paul Tracy. They're side by side through the first corners, but Tracy gets a little better run off the corner. Still, will he be able to hold it down the backstretch as Ribeiro begins to use that draft? Darts out, darts to the inside, and Ribeiro is around Tracy. That puts him into third place. Gary Gerould, any more on Michael? Gary Gerould, any more information on Michael Andretti?
Indeed, they've taken and changed all the electronic components that they can, and they will try to fire the engine and get him back out. The engine just now coming to life. The wheels are moving. We'll see if this works. It engages, stutters, and slowly he gets away.
So Michael Andretti sputtering back into the action. The same time Al Unser Jr., who started 13th, is now running 8th. And Michael tries to get her back up to speed. Hopefully they have whatever problem he has fixed. And Parker Johnstone is still the leader. Now Unser Jr. is on the fly. He's been carving his way up through this field. And now is battling Big Mo, Mauricio Gugelmin, for 6th. Not much of a battle. He dispatches him just that quickly, and now will set his sights on Jimmy Vasser, who runs ahead about 200 yards. Jacques Villeneuve is already back into the fight after they've done the work on his car, but he has fallen well back in the order. We'll try to give you an update on how many laps behind. And Gugelmin, who had a good battle going for a while with Paul Tracy, just got really sucked under by Al Unser Jr. when he came up and got Tracy, and then got by Pruett, then got by Gugelmin. So now it is Scott Pruett and Mauricio Gugelmin that battle, but Gugelmin comes off the corner low.
They have been running side by side like this for several laps. Bobby, I'm glad that the boost was cut back and the speeds cut back a little bit. This seems awful fast as it is. It could have been another 5 to 8 miles an hour faster without those horsepower restrictions.
Everything is pretty much the same, Sam, except that it takes him a while to get up to speed. That same old flywheel effect. A heavy flywheel takes a long time to get turning.
Look at Gugelmin fall back suddenly.
It's going pretty good.
Gugelmin fell back suddenly behind Pruett.
Parker Johnstone is still the leader. We've had one incident today. Carlos Guerrero, he's now with Gary Gerould.
Carlos, can you tell us what happened in that situation that ended up with such a heavy impact on the wall?
Well, yeah, the Erdős car was all weekend with understeering. I don't know what happened, but this morning is still the same. And at the race, the car was with oversteering, completely different that was this morning and all weekend. So I start moving my bars to try to find the correct setup of the car. And I ride to turn number 3 and I lost the car.
We're happy that you're all right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Scott Pruett chases Al Unser Jr. Continuing battle for 6th place.
Now this is pretty much of a race right here that we can kind of look at between engines. Both of these cars look like they handle about the same. Little Al in the front car there is the Mercedes, and Scott Pruett is in a Ford. Let's watch this one.
We'll listen to Scott Pruett. So in a fight like this, I doubt he's on the radio too much at all. Eddie Cheever driving for A.J. Foyt, who has not been quite as racy since that first lap accident at Indianapolis. Looking pretty good here today. Started 18th, now runs in 10th.
You can see little Al on the left, Scott behind him. Now Scott's picking up a draft, Paul. Not a whole lot of draft, just so everybody knows, because these cars have to get a little bit closer than that to get a big draft.
You ride with Scott Pruett. Started 12th, now in 7th, chasing Allenser Jr. Battles for second.
The race. He's about 7
As
seconds
Andre
behind
Ribeiro
us.
overhauls Teo Fabi and moves into second.
That
They're
makes
also moving
Honda's
through lap traffic right now.
That makes Honda's 1-2 in this race at this point, and also Firestone Tires 1-2 over Goodyear. Goodyear has this enormous winning streak of over 300 consecutive races. I don't think they've been menaced like this in 20 years.
Sam, I think what we're seeing here is a horsepower difference and not the tire differences. I think these tires have been pretty evenly matched.
Oh, I
Firestone and Goodyear.
Oh, I agree with that. I just mean as far as the outcome of the race. Yeah, the Honda is just giving those.
Paul Tracy grabs off 3rd place. Puts Teo Fabi back to 4th. And speaking of Teo Fabi, let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, the combustion engineering team wants to try and make this a 5-stop race, and the way they're going to do that is try and make their first stop no sooner than lap 50. So they're down low on fuel, but they're going to try and run it 6 more laps and then look for Teo Fabi to come on to pit road.
Now we're on lap 44 of 250 right now. We should see many of the teams beginning to lay out equipment for a stop any time now. Fastest lap of the race thus far was just turned by Parker Johnstone at 230.6 miles an hour.
That's not a lot with a draft, too. Remember, all this air moving around makes like a big whirlpool. It really helps them in speed. Another thing to remember is nobody, meaning the mechanics, don't know what the fuel mileage is going to be at 40 inches of manifold pressure. So a lot, here comes, looks like Johnstone right into the pits right now. So they don't really know what their fuel mileage is, so right now it's going to be interesting.
The leader of the race, Parker Johnstone, he's led the first 45 laps. He relinquishes now, Gary.
Oh, Paul, he slides
no.
through. They've blown the stop for the moment. We were afraid of that. From 230 miles an hour down to 90, it's slippery on the concrete. He slid through. They rolled him back, and now the hoses are in place, and the tire changing process begins. But this is just a real tough stop. Remember, as you pointed out, this is his first time ever on an oval race. First time for this crew to work under these conditions. They were poised, they got him back, he's refueled, and he's underway. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Gary, now Andre Ribeiro will make his presence known on pit road, and we almost have a crash here between Adrian Fernandez and Parker Johnstone as they come by Ribeiro's pit. The team is set waiting for Andre to come in, and it looks as if as well we're going to see if possibly Teo Fabi will come in. No, Fabi looks like he will stay out, so it's all going to be Ribeiro on pit road. Going down very slowly. The speed limit is only 90 miles an hour. The Honda team will go to work.
Remember, it is very tough to get from that new pavement onto the concrete there without having problems. They've had problems all through practice with that. We saw cars spinning as they left the pits in practice.
So Andre Ribeiro, who
But Sam, remember, the one thing that Andre Ribeiro has going for him that Parker Johnstone didn't is the fact that he was able to do this in the Indy 500 as well. Go from blacktop to concrete.
Right.
lead swaps regularly now. Picked up by Ribeiro, then by Teo Fabi. Paul Tracy is in the pits now, as most of the teams making their stops. Not yet stopping, of course, though, is Teo Fabi. Jimmy Vasser and Scott Pruitt are staying out as well. So is Mauricio Gugelmin, trying to milk every mile they can out of those fuel tanks.
And the idea, Paul, is they need a yellow. If they got a yellow, they would pick up roughly about a lap advantage on all the guys that are pitted now. They're looking for Lady Luck to help them, and that's a good reason to stay out.
Mauricio Gugelmin from fourth place finally heads in. Teo Fabi from the lead. And here he is, Jack.
And Teo Fabi, the crew will go to work. Now let's watch and see, besides changing the tires and taking on the fuel, as you watch this pit stop, make sure to see that the crewmen, especially on the front, don't go towards the nose. One crewman tries to take debris out of the radiator. No changes on the car suspension-wise in 12.3 seconds.
And Jack, A.J. Foyt's playing with the tactics here. He's kept Eddie